All right, I want to go ahead and start off with a little bit of an introduction on what we're going to be doing over the course of this class. There's a few terms, few ideas. I want to kind of nudge us in the right direction so that we're approaching this the correct way or the way that I think would be best suited for our endeavor in this class. We're looking at rhetoric. We're considering how to employ it as far as critical thinking goes. This is multifaceted because we have different things that we're trying to do. We're trying to critically read, which means looking at something that's already been written, obviously, and evaluate the manner in which it's trying to persuade us. We're also trying to figure out how we can best use tools for persuasion as we start to construct our own writing. Now, within all of this is to consider the context, the audience, the rhetorical situation, the various aspects that are even bringing us into writing or reading. There was a point in time when I would read something and I would kind of think like, well, it's been written, so obviously this is authoritative. I should follow it. I should believe it. I should not question any of the reader or the writer's motives for writing this. And of course, as I advanced in education, I started to recognize that there's a lot of biases, there's a lot of background that is absolutely necessary to fully get or comprehend the base ideas behind a piece of writing. So, as I go over these ideas, I'm in no way implying that, these are unknown to you or that you've never heard of any of these concepts or ideas. But I do want to kind of frame this in a way that we move forward cognitively thinking about, metacognitively thinking about how we already have our biases, how we already have our approaches, and how we kind of look at things as we are either writing, trying to explain something, trying to convince somebody of something, or reading something and discerning some kind of meaning from it. So really, we're kind of evaluating this in the terms of writing as thinking, right? If writing clarifies thought rather than simply recording it. I don't know if you've ever utilized writing in that way, where you're just trying to get your ideas down and suddenly you realize you're forming an opinion or forming some ideas, and that's kind of an exciting idea or exciting practice. And so we want to try to practice and get that. Now, some key ideas, some terms that we're going to be going over the course of the semester. So I'll kind of go over those or highlight those at this point in time. But I want you to keep track of these. I want you to kind of watch for these as we go through the reading material. We have facts versus inferences. We have some inferences where you might have something where you kind of draw a conclusion based on the fact. So you look at the fact that the ground is wet, you might infer that it rained last night. Maybe it rained last night, or maybe the sprinklers went off. It's hard to say. There's a lot of ways we look at facts and inferences, drawing conclusions from the evidence that's provided. And not always did it rain last night. Sometimes the sprinklers did go on. Sometimes things aren't as they appear. Another one of my favorites is correlation versus causation. Correlation is two things happening at the same time, causation being that one actually caused the other. We sometimes will get into conspiracy minded people where they draw two correlations and assume that they have to be connected. You might have something like, um, we eat ice cream during the summer, and during the summer, there's more shark attacks. Therefore, eating ice cream causes shark attacks. Now, obviously, these are just two summertime things. People tend to go swimming more during the summer and make themselves available to sharks. And we tend to eat more ice cream when it's hot. So those two things correlate, but they do not cause each other. There's some TikToks or some YouTube videos where they have some pretty hilarious false correlations, kind of drawing causation. Um, all right. We're going to go over deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning. This is either drawing from something that's general into something specific or something that is very specific into more general assumptions. So we're going to go into that. We're going to be evaluating logical fallacies. Now, I know some of you are familiar with like a slippery slope fallacy. I think sometimes we look at those like a gun control policy. If we outlaw automatic assault rifles, then pretty soon we're going to be taking away all the guns. You can't do one without the other. It's obviously going to slide down. That's the slippery slope. Or a straw man or ad hominem. Again, we're going to go over the fallacies. You're probably aware of some already. Um, we're going to be getting back into rhetoric. rhetorical appeals, obviously, the rhetorical triangle, the elements being ethos, pathos, and logos. Hopefully, this is something that you're bringing from the composition class. When we talk about those, and we will, I want you to remember that the rhetorical triangle, if I say, what is the definition of the rhetorical triangle? It's a tool or a mechanism by which we gauge the effectiveness of rhetoric. It's not ethos, pathos, and logos. If I say, what's the rhetorical triangle? You say ethos, pathos, and logos. That's like saying, what is a car? And you say, well, it's four tires and a steering wheel. Well, the four tires and the steering wheel are components of the car, but they are not the car themselves. So the rhetorical triangle, it's important just to differentiate, is a tool or a mechanism by which we evaluate the effectiveness of rhetoric. All right, we're going to get into evaluating sources. We're going to get into utilizing sources. We're going to be paraphrasing. We're going to be summarizing. And when the rhetorical situation calls for it, we're going to be direct quoting. I don't want you to always rely on a direct quote. If we have a direct quote within one of your pieces of writing, I might ask you, why did you choose rhetorically to do that? And hopefully you have a reason. It's not just like, well, I don't know. I like direct quoting. We're also going to look into a diversity of opinions or perspectives. I think that's pretty important. Getting some different ideas from different cultures, getting things from different personal experiences, looking at how each of our own personal histories has informed our current situation and our perspective on how we look at things going forward. If we were to have a debate on something like minimum wage, for example, if it's viewed through different cultural or economic or sociological lenses, we all bring different ideas or preconceived notions to this discussion. It's not to say that one of them is better than the other, but we have a well-rounded approach to it. We can have a better informed discussion about it. If we ever branch into something that gets into politics in the class, well, we don't want to be so extremist to think like, well, only the conservatives have the answers or only the liberals have the answers. I think best informed, you can see that there are solutions and valuable contributions from both sides of the equation. And anytime you get into an echo chamber or a situation where you're just informing based on your previous biases, then there's not going to be any growth. And so it is important to kind of understand where you're coming from so that you can kind of challenge some of those assumptions and, see the perspectives that are offered from alternative points of view. So, and then obviously, we want to have some application of all of these ideas beyond academia, everyday decision making, getting into social media, looking at news, how we digest information, right? It could be as simple as looking at the rhetorical strategies of somebody saying limited time sale only, right? Lighting the rhetorical appeal fire under us. We might get into some different aspects of critical thinking, such as critical theory, like Occam's razor, which is like the simplest explanations, usually the best one. It's not always, but it's usually taking all of the um, explanations that require anything else out of the equation. Um, but again, we're going to be looking at all of the different aspects. So I just wanted to jump in a little bit, give some perspective on what we're going to be going over in the course, what you can expect, and hopefully that you can start to consider and look for as we get into the reading, as we start applying it to our own writing as well. So, all right, thanks.